Over the past couple of months, we've been working to establish a backyard wildlife habitat right here at our studio gardens, primarily to attract birds to help us in controlling the insects in our landscape plants and garden plants. And you know, with newly planted vegetation, it takes a while for it to mature for really to get the maximum benefit of the wildlife. Well, earlier today, though, we visited a backyard wildlife habitat that's been years in the making. We stopped by the home of Florence Wass in Stillwater, Oklahoma, who's also a member of the Payne County Audubon Society. Well, Florence, you have a beautiful backyard here. It's hard to believe that you're right in town here in Stillwater. It's just a perfect habitat, and I'd like for you to show us some of the highlights that we've seen here. Now, I noticed to start with, you've already got up some supplemental feeders for the summer. What about the one here in the back? What is that?
This is a soot feeder, and I make my own soot, and the birds really like it in the winter, and now this year I have noticed that they are coming in and taking it to their babies.
Okay, what, blue jays?
Blue jays, cardinals, chickadees, titmice.
All right, well, you've got, of course, a sunflower feeder here too.
This is more for smaller birds, you see, the grackles and larger birds, so they have feed.
Well, now, plant material, you've done just about the whole works. We talked about the food, shelter, and water, and you've got it all right here in your landscape, I tell you. But comment on this plant right here. That's kind of an unusual one.
Well, this is euonymus. It's called Euonymus alatus compactum, and it turns red. Of course, you see, you have your color there, and then it has little bracts that are kind of turn orange in the fall, and a lot of birds like this. Okay, so it's going to have fall color for the foliage for you and berries for the birds then, right? And the ferny look for me too. Right, and then of course it provides some shelter. So that one's a deciduous, and you really don't have the problems with the scale and things on it like some of the other No, that's right.
Now I notice you've got several dogwoods scattered throughout, so of course they're going to have some nice flowers and berries on them too, aren't they? And the color. And the color. Now, Florence, I found this interesting, another one of your supplemental feeders. What have you done here? Well, I had some old screens, you know, old-time screens, and it's high enough to where the predators don't get it so much, and a lot of space for the birds to get on, and they see it drains. Right. And you were telling me particularly what the cats kind of want to come and get the birds, and that's... It helps. It's high enough to where it's harder to get. And they can't really climb on the wire. No. Okay. Now, this one really caught my attention, a beautiful maple, and I was, of course, for the landscape value, it's attractive, but you said it also helps out with the wildlife. Yes, it has little, just like the little seeds like the maple have, those little, early in the spring, right? Well, yes, and it comes on a little later in the spring. Okay, and so then the birds will eat on that. Now, the other interesting thing that I've noticed too is you're putting out some of the feed on the ground, and you've got water here, but this is a pecan tree that's shading the whole yard, so it's got some nuts on it too. But what have you done here with the... Well, this, I've taken an old cedar tree and used it, this is their perch. Right. And it was close to the feeder, see here. Okay. Because the tree is really so tall, you had to bring it down a little bit so they could perch for the... So that's an interesting setup there, and it still looks attractive the way you've got it there with the tree. Now, we talked about with landscaping, it's good to have different layering effects. You've done a nice job with that, having the smaller area for protection. What do you have just in this planting here? Just name a few of the most common things. Well, the fern's the main thing, then the wild columbine here, you see. And the hostas, this is a sort of an ordinary hosta, and it does well. So it gives you a little bit of color effect too, but also some shelter, I guess, for some of the ground birds, right? Yes, yes, they like to, and then the rose, you see, it's a small rose. Right, have some rose hips for fruit. Now, what are the pathways to? Well, I call this my secret garden. Your secret garden, huh? So you go back there and meditate, I guess. Yes, and there's a little stump back there that I sit on and watch birds back in here. All right. And then another one that I really found interesting too was kind of considered, I guess, as a low ground cover.
Yes.
Tell me about that one and what benefits it has for the bird.
Well, this is Solomon's seal, and you can see it's starting to make its berries. You see flowers and berries.
Right.
So the birds like that.
And it actually hang the berries on the bottom side there.
Yes, they're black berries.
That's real attractive too for a ground cover effect, isn't it?
And then this is a small, it hasn't come out, but it's green dragon, and it has berries.
Now, we've talked about the feed and the shelter and the food. What component here? That's important in the bird bath.
Oh, yes, They really use the bird bath.
So you will see a lot of activity there, huh? Which birds are going to be coming in and using that?
Well, I would say just most any, but the cardinals, robins, mockingbirds, brown thrashers.
Okay. And then I guess you've got one more feeder here, huh?
Yes, and this is a swivel feeder, see, so whenever the wind blows, it moves. I wanted to tell you about this. That's a pawpaw back there.
Okay.
And it has the little kind of a banana-like
fruit on it, doesn't it?
And the birds like that.
How about
Squirrels.
that? Well, you have done a marvelous job in a small yard providing a habitat, and really it's a woodlands shaded garden because of your big pecan tree, but I mean, every plant you've put in here, it looks like has a purpose for the birds and for you as well, as far as enjoying. So, Florence, thank you very much for showing us around. And I also want to tell you today we had the opportunity to visit with Carolyn Hunger, who is a Vice President-elect of the Payne County Audubon Society, and she had some really good tips to share with us, too, about birding and landscaping.
The Payne County Audubon Society is a chapter consisting of about 155 members. That puts us in the 0 to 300 category, which is a title we get from the National Audubon Society. And the National Audubon Society has its headquarters in New York, and there's also headquarters in Washington, D.C. And we are affiliated with them. And it's kind of a three-tier system where you have the National Audubon Society, your West Central Region office, which our region consists of 8 states, and the headquarters for that is in Manhattan, Kansas. And then there's all the local chapters in that 8-state region.
Really? Well,
today we are in the backyard of Mr. Ed Glover's house. He has worked on this yard for many, many years, at least 10, 12, grooming it, planting trees and shrubs, and putting up feeders and squirrel guards to bring in the birds, and he's done a very, very good job of it. People used to believe that Audubon was just birds, and it's just not true anymore, which I'm happy to say. We are concerned about the environment, about habitat, about the education of children as well as adults. We primarily, the Payne County Audubon Society, works a lot with children through the elementary schools, trying to educate them about habitat, conducive to not only birds but other wildlife, the loss of habitat, how to maintain habitat, why it's important, and about other animals, why we need them, about pollution, about recycling. The earth in general is what we try to do with the kids. We actually do 3 different bird counts, our chapter does, and most of the other chapters across the United States do also. The first one we start up with is the Christmas bird count. That is in December, and we pick a day, select a day, hopefully it's not raining real hard or something, and we send out numerous people in the Payne County area. We limit it to one area because other chapters are covering the other areas, and you don't want to cross over. You don't want to count 2 times. And we count all of the birds at that time, and then we do another one, a Sooner Lake bird count, and we also do the spring migration bird count. And the reason we do these, Steve, is because in order to know if a species is dying out, they have to be counted. And when you do a count nationwide, then it lets the census people know if a species is more numerous than the year before or lesser, and it kind of gives them factors to go by to decide if they need to be endangered or looked at. The spring migration count is in the spring, and we, the Payne County Audubon Society, does an annual birdathon at that time. And it's different in that we don't count every single bird we see, which you do on a bird count, but what we go is per species. And a birdathon is where a person goes out and gets sponsors, people to sponsor them so much money for each different species of bird that they identify just in a 24-hour period. And that money then we are able to use to go into the schools to teach classes and to provide materials for them to learn from and different things like that. To be a bird watcher, you pretty much need binoculars, definitely, and bird books, and sunscreen on a hot day. That's important. But mostly, I don't limit myself to just one bird book. 2 is ideal, 3 is the best. And that is because different authors and illustrators picture their birds differently. The Audubon Bird Book will use actual photo shots. National Geographic is real good. I like it because it puts the map of its range map, right next to the explanation of the bird, right next to the picture. So you have all 3 things at one time, and that's important to look for when you are buying a bird book. And so when you see a bird and you don't know what it is, and you've looked at it through your binoculars and picked out all of its identifying marks, then you can go back to your bird books, and it may not look like that bird in one bird book, but if you have another one, then you can kind of compare and read about it and find out what it is you're looking at. Some of the common birds that you're going to find in your backyard that everybody I'm sure has seen is the cardinal and the blue jay, but a few of the other common summer species that you're real lucky to get would be like the chickadee. It's kind of black and white and real small and likes to say its name. The tufted titmouse got its name from the little tuft on its head, a little beige patches on its wings. There's also the red-bellied woodpecker, which does not look like a red-headed, it looks like a red-headed woodpecker because the red's on its head and not on its back. Another bird that's becoming a lot more common in the summertime is the American goldfinch, which is just that. It's gold with a black crown on its head. That's the male, and the female is more olive-colored.
Now, if you would like more information on the Audubon Society in your area, look in the yellow pages of the telephone book or check with your local Chamber of Commerce, or you can get similar information from the Non-Game Wildlife Department at 1801 North Lincoln Boulevard, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma 73105.